My name is Jimmy Israel. James, but no one calls me James that doesn't know me well. Everybody just calls me Jimmy. That's what I prefer. I'm an academic every day, but I'm a writer by compulsion. I finally reached a place in my life where I can take the chains off, and I'm not afraid of anybody. Uh, that's what the pen did for me. The pen made me fearless. So if that's the metric, I'll take it. Yeah, the pen made me fearless. Yeah. So and that yeah, it made me because I've been so afraid to be black and male. I've been so afraid to have an opinion. I've been so afraid to speak my mind. I've been so afraid to be free. I'm not afraid of those things anymore. I'm not afraid of anybody. I'm not afraid of anybody, anything. I am free. I am free. So if that's, I'll take that as a metric. And my Mercedes, which is paid for in full. Yeah, the trappings of success.
Hello, my name is Giorgio Sabino. I'm an artist in Ohio, and I am looking forward to this interview. I became an artist young, which gave me the ability to see composition as I walk around. And that is probably the biggest difference between someone who just takes photos and someone who actually can take a photo. And so when you see composition, you click then. And so a lot of people say, why do you take it so fast? And it's like, well, I saw it, sometimes I'll count down 1, 2, and I told them 3, but I saw it on 2 because they were in that space. So, or I'm on, more like a sniper where you just wait for that photograph to happen. And so there's huge differences when you can see it and then you just snap and be able to lock in aperture, shutter, and light. And so my goal, and when I was even teaching, is to share how do you take photos as if you want everything on the front page of a newspaper or a magazine. And that's how I've learned to shoot and taught other folks how to become that.
Good afternoon. My name is John Davison, or John Sky Davison. I'm an artist and designer. I did radios, two-way radios at Motorola, calculators, bicycles, heating units, things like that, tools for Stanley tools, but mostly consumer electronic products. So the designing of those.
And can you tell me, please, how the technology informs the art, or is it the art that's shaping the technology? You come up with a basic design and then hand that off to someone else, or is there a team?
Well, it's kind of a team. We would come up with the idea. Well, first the client would present what they needed, and then we would take a blue sky approach to creating a product for that, and then it would go to engineering. And engineering would, usually there's a battle between the designers and the engineers as to what can be done and what can't be done. But I found a pretty happy medium between the two where I could work, and a lot of the prototypes we would do looked more like sculpture, looked like fine art sculpture before they got actually made into production where you could actually use them. So.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Banks, Robert C. Banks Jr., if you want to be formal. It is early July. I consider early part of the summer, which is, for Northeast Ohio, it's either hit or miss. So for me as an artist, as a visual artist, I try to make the most of each day during this time of the year because I'm all about light, and I'm all about identity of light and how it reflects the landscape and everything. So that's what I do. And I just happen to use cameras and lenses and other means of capturing things and expressing things. So cinematography is conceptually generating the idea here, putting it on paper, coming up with all these creative strategies of making the thing work because it's problem solving, and then finding the right glass, the right optics, and then capturing the subject in whatever medium, whether it's film or digital, and then taking that medium and then going in there and then doing the magic. You're painting with it, whether you're using, Final Cut Pro or DaVinci or Avid, or if you're using traditional printing, with the color analyzer and looking at your film negative, flash to the negative. I can't express that enough. A handful of friends that I have, they're film geeks like I am. They're film collectors. We always talk about different decades, different cinematographers, different looks, and that's based on the different chemistry used, different print stocks, different filters, the different light. All these elements make a look, and to me, that's what separates the men from the boys, so to speak. Not to be, but.
My name is Esquire T. Banks. I am a truth teller. I am a scholar. I'm an MSW. I'm a visual artist. And I'm a former teacher.
Is there one word that describes your art? If you had only one word to share with somebody, say, this is what that art is all about, what would that word be?
The word would be simply truth. That's the one word, truth. I've explained to you earlier the two kinds of truth that I've spoken to in conventions, but at the end of the day, put it under one umbrella, it's the truth. That's what my art represents for me. And every time I create a piece, a little more truth about our people, a little bit more truth, sometimes even about myself, not so much always in the work, but how I have to push that envelope. And I want to say this about that truth. I know people are going to look at my work and be amazed at how well I draw. But at the same time, I feel like my work, I know, creates emotions and questions. It's controversial, not by my choice. But what I would love, I know it'll never happen, is everybody can look at my work and take upon it some emotional piece for themselves, or something that would make them cry or feel something touching. So that inspires me to draw those stories and them faces and all that much more. So it's about the truth, if that's the one word.
Hello, my name is Marcel Dorsey. I'm a filmmaker and writer, born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, and I love Cleveland. Filmmaking was like I don't know how to describe it at the time. That you just never thought about it. It was just, you saw movies, you saw TV, but you never saw the behind the scenes. So ironically, the first person I even heard of, the first person that introduced me to filmmaking was Steven Spielberg. That's the first person I heard his name, and he was the first person on TV showing behind the scenes stuff. And so I said, okay, Steven Spielberg, he's director or whatever. And then I didn't really understand what a director did until James Cameron came about. And I loved The Terminator. It's one of my favorite movies. And I loved everything about The Terminator. But then when I saw Aliens and I saw the same actor from The Terminator, and he pulled out, a specific weapon and stuff was similar. So I said, okay, now I see what the director does. That's just, I understood then. I didn't know I could be a director until I saw Robert Townsend when he made the Hollywood Shuffle. So when I saw that, I said, well, wait a minute, okay, I could actually do that.
My formal name is Richard Peary, and my profession now is I'm a retired journalist. I think the responsibility of journalists is to make sure that the public gets the information it needs to understand and make good, well-based decisions on what policy should be, what action should be. So there are many pictures, many scenes that are really borderline. They're going to be shocking. They're going to be traumatic for people to see, and painful, especially for the families. And the journalist has to ask the question, does the need for the public to see this detail outweigh the damage or just bad feelings that it will create on with some people? And that's there's no one way, no one rule to answer that. It has to be a case by case decision. And then, of course, with newspaper journalism, which I know basically extrapolated to television, but newspapers, when they sold, if they were sold on, at, each edition had to be sold to somebody as opposed to home delivery. They were more inclined to go with the more sensational presentation. And here in Cleveland at the time, back in the 60s and, well, for many, I guess for decades, the Morning Plain Dealer was a home delivery paper. People got it on their doorstep when they got up and they could read it with breakfast and go to work. The Press was an afternoon paper, and so people by that time were up and about and moving around when the paper came out, and so they had more newsstand sales, and they were more sensational. But I think that was a product of the way they were distributed. One had home delivery and didn't need that point of sale sensation, and the other had to have a large part of its sales be spontaneous. So this is one of the things that goes into these decisions, but at the same time, of course, there is an obligation of the news media to tell the truth and make sure that people understand what's going on.
Well, good evening, and I'm very happy to be here. I am Dr. Monica Bickerstaff Riley. I am the total embodiment of my North Stars. And what do I mean by that? I am an Emmy Award-winning journalist, a lifetime member of the NABJ. I'm a doctor of integrative medicine. I'm a college professor, and my heart's passion is with my company, celebrating 10 years of Dr. Monica's Natural Beauty. There is no Constitution without the First Amendment, which is why it's the First Amendment and why it's number one. Okay, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of expression. That is one of our birthrights. And as a journalist, we take an oath to uphold the truth by any means necessary. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what it is. So we too take an oath. And so my desire to become a journalist literally is built on the backs of real journalists back in the day, the Barbara Walters, the Dan Rathers, again, the Max Robinsons, Ida B. Wells Barnett, she's one of my sheroes, Phyllis Wheatley, Paul Laurence Dunbar. These are all ancestors of our past, but also ancestors who have a vested history in the press. I am not an advocate of AI, period. It's funny because I constantly have this debate with my collegiate colleagues, especially since I teach writing, since I teach composition. But with respect to journalism, I am horrified now by this young generation of journalists. They're not journalists. They can call themselves bloggers, but they're not journalists, because journalists, behind every journalist's pen is the ability to research and the ability to interview. It's the ability to interface with human beings and tell their stories as they tell them, not as you interpret them, but as they tell them. To research the facts that are a foundation, cornerstone of this nation. And AI obliterates all of that. I always tell my students, first of all, don't step in my class and turn in a paper that's written in Chat GPT or using AI, because I will know the difference. How? From the first night when my students come into my class, I have them come to the front, tell us all a little bit about themselves, and they start writing that very first night. That's so I can read and hear their writer's voice.
Julie Ezel Patton. She painted a lot with her carving knife, and she would do that in our small house in the kitchen. In the kitchen, yes. In the kitchen, talking on the phone with in New York, talking with my dad on the phone. You know, you go from one subject to another, and it's like, periodically we would discuss my mom. Oh yeah, how's Virgie? She's fine. Blah, 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 blah. And at one point, I wanted to speak to my mother, and I said, "Is mom in the kitchen? There in the kitchen with you?" Because my dad liked to cook. He was a very nurturing, at domestic dad, also. And so when I said, "Is mom in there in the kitchen with you?" In the kitchen. In the kitchen, Virgie walked past the stove, break out in hives, which is to say, obviously, to do all this work and have 6 kids and hold down jobs, and she was not a typical mom for that era.